social is actually more than an F&B brand. It is a space which is dedicated to the community. If you're
Correct.
selling a product, there are emotional stories that have to be woven because FMCG products have claims like that. See, we don't think of ourselves only as an F&B space. We are a hangout place. We want to give people the good time. Like, your meetings happen here, your dates happen here, your birthdays happen here. These spaces are so important. Think about it.
Right.
I think unique positioning is very important because if you don't have something different, people will not come. The location is very, very important.
Hey there, welcome to Marketing Mavericks with IndieFolio. Today we have Divya Aggrawal joining us, the Chief Growth Officer at Impresario. Before Impresario, Divya spent over 10 to 12 years in marketing, working with some incredible companies from Nestle to Twitter to Star and even Jubilant, where she launched Popeyes. I'm excited to talk about marketing hospitality to Indians and knowing a lot more about her journey. Thanks a lot for your time, Divya, and welcome to the podcast.
Thanks, Kavan. Thanks for having me.
So, I want to first get started by asking you, when is it that you decided you wanted to hop into marketing and make that your career choice?
I think that happened very early on, actually. I did my MBA year two in marketing. So I think that choice was made very, very early on. And my first job was also in consumer insights, market research, as the title says. So that happened very early on. I was very clear I wanted to actually go in marketing. So that was perhaps never a choice, I would say.
But when did that bug catch you, right? Because I'll tell you why I'm asking you this. Often, a lot of people who are curious about, let's say, marketing, either think it is all about ads and celebrities and all that. At the other end, because of a lot of people, a lot of chatter about strategic data-driven marketing, they feel it's a lot about growth and a lot about data analytics and things like that. So I see a lot of my fellow, folks confused, saying, "Am I the right person for marketing or not?" So if you can kind of unpack that, it'll be interesting.
Tier one marketing, I would say combination of subjects like marketing management and statistics. For me, it was these two. Because year two was when we really did consumer behavior and deeper strategic marketing. But by then I knew. So it was you rightly said it was a combination of literally Kotler and what was taught there and statistics and more. That's why I was more driven towards consumer insights rather than starting my career in pure play brand marketing. I started with consumer insights, which then led me to sort of, and that is the base of everything that I do. It's more consumer first, consumer thinking. And that's when the bug sort of hit me. That was a subject which I liked. And that happened to be the choice that I made. A lot of my fellow batchmates went for banking and jobs like that, while I sort of stuck onto consumer insights, uh, which was a more niche choice, I would say, in the batch.
Understood. Understood. You've been in this domain for over a decade now. When you worked with some really iconic companies, you started with analytics, then you were handling Maggie, then you've also had a stint in Jubilant. And what I've seen is there's a lot of evolution happening in this typical marketing leadership role. Like the best example right now is what you're doing today at Impresario, which is you're doing growth, right? So could you unpack for a lot of people who may not be aware, how is marketing different from growth? Are they the same thing? And what's the right fit for me? Like what should I look at between both these roles?
See, I'm actually handling both growth and marketing at Impresario. Uh, yeah, the title is CGO, Chief Growth Marketing. And I think this is a role which has, of course, is evolving, and a lot of people are still getting clarity on what it is. To me, what it means, how is it different, is marketing is, of course, traditionally what you need. There are the P's that you have to do: your product, your pricing, your promotion, your place, your insights, all of that, consumer insights, your content, your digital marketing, all of that will, of course, sit with core marketing. Growth to me means something which is driving that additional growth, which is more data driven, which is more analytics driven, which can give you something more from the existing at a lower cost, by utilizing the resources that you have. that becomes your growth function, uh, which can be a separate function, which can be a sub function. Different organizations, different sectors would have it differently. We have structured it in a such in a certain way. For us, for example, the teams like CRM, loyalty, teams that look at tech within that, teams like delivery also, because that's something which we do from the existing outlets. They are something which are giving us, existing more growth from the existing base. Is something that we look at within the growth department. So that's how we look at it. And if you will look at traditionally also and search, for the growth marketeers or the growth analysts, they looking at techniques of growing either revenue or whatever metric you are looking at by utilizing the resources in the most optimal manner and looking at the strategy from the existing basis in a most optimal way. I think that's what people are looking at in these days. Everyone has, of course, the targets which are difficult to achieve, whether it's bottom line or top line. So how do you work around that?
Awesome. No, thanks for unpacking that. You actually answered my next question, so I'm glad I didn't interrupt you. Often I've had people tell me our growth role ke liye I joined and I'm doing social media creatives. So it's a pretty unfortunate one where a lot of founders, because they want to attract a certain kind of talent or want a cool designation, they end up giving roles growth next to everything. So I'm happy you unpacked that. And I had my stint at GrowthX where I learned, it was a 2-3 month cohort where I really understood that, wow, I think it really blends in your product understanding, analytics, and marketing, along with business all together. It's like a cocktail of all of that. And it's actually something which is extremely important in today's time, where you've seen so many companies trying their level best to figure the CAC problem, but they're just not able to. And I think somebody in your position really can take a holistic call as to what will happen. I wanted to jump next into Divya, a common you know assumption a lot of people have, which is, if you want to let's say become a CMO one day, or a head of marketing one day, you'll need to pick a domain. You'll have to understand the customer very very well, or 10 साल मतलब BFSI करना पड़ेगा if you want to become a CMO one day of an insurance company or a bank. You have a great experience, right? I mean, you've done bunch of things. As I said, you were on the service side first, then you went and did a bunch of things in FMCG, and then you're also right now in hospitality. So what's your take towards that? Clearly people hired you and you've been doing a great job. So what's your opinion there? I'm assuming you have a different opinion there.
See, I've actually worked in a lot of industries. Like you rightly said, I started from consumer insights at an agency side. I moved to Nestle, where I worked across categories, which was culinary, beverages, chocolate, some of the most iconic brands. Then I actually moved to Star, where I did brand strategy for Star Plus, which was a Hindi GC channel with a reach like 350 million, like in the country, where I really went into the heartland of the country, which was not even, which was the smallest of the villages, right? Where the TV actors, that was the time of Ekta Kapoor and all these shows were doing really well, where these actors were bigger than Shah Rukh and Salman in those regions. Then I did a startup uh, in healthy snacking space. Then I went to Twitter. Then I did a stint with Popeyes, like you said. See, the common theme is understanding your consumer and understanding marketing. And I have friends also from the industry who have worked in different uh, different industries, and one of my best friends and I say from the marketing that we can actually sell anything. It's about knowing the principles of marketing. You don't really need to conquer one. It's good to know one domain, and I did that with Nestle because I worked in FMCG for 7, 8 years at one place. I was able to understand that. And in a place like Nestle, which is really a great place to learn consumer marketing, a great place to learn your fundamentals in terms of how marketing works, how business works, because at such places, the brand managers handle the P&Ls, right? So you start understanding the business as well. So it's a great learning ground, and that makes you sort of understand, which is helping me today. So it's also how your foundation is laid, I think, which really helps. A lot of brand managers do their sales stint first, and then they become brand managers. I did consumer insights, then I did brand manager, then I went to Twitter and I did my sales stint there actually. I did digital sales because that's essentially what it is. The client partners or the client rep, it's a glorified role. But ultimately it's digital sales, right? You're selling assets which are not FMCG products. They are much more difficult to sell, and Twitter is definitely was not easy to sell. But yeah, so I was able to add sales to it. So actually, I made some. I did it very purposely because I wanted to work on a big digital platform and I wanted to add sales to my portfolio so that I can become a CMO. So rather than a company or an organization or a segment, I was looking at the skill set uh, to jump on to become the CMO, which I was able to do. So I think that's a better way to look at it because right now the portfolio that I'm handling, I'm able to look at different skill sets, uh, and that's why growth and marketing, right? Because you understand data, digital analytics, consumer insights, and pure play brand marketing, creatives, partnerships, everything because of the different skill sets that you have learned rather than just one domain. So I think that has actually added on to it, and that is enabling me to do what I'm doing today, which perhaps I wouldn't have been able to do if I was doing only one domain. So that's how I look at things. It's also a very optimistic way of looking at life, which I usually do. So I hope I've answered.
I think you have. I believe what a lot of hesitation or other what maybe you've done really well, right, is you've learned very quickly, right? The why people stick to a domain is because yeah, 10 साल किया है एक industry में, now I know all the minute things also, and I can take decisions, which will work. So my question then would be is how do you learn quickly, right? Like let's say you've gone from tech to brand to hospitality. What's your general tact of figuring out industry?
I think foundation really helped. That 7 years in one place, it also depends on what that organization is. I think I learned a lot there. Also, the first thing in consumer insights, which was across categories and these iconic brands, made you learn. It was a very small team which was reporting directly to the CEO of Nestle. It wasn't reporting to the businesses. So it was a very entrepreneurial role right at the beginning of my career. So I think I was very fortunate enough. Yes, it was a lot of hard work, but it was also a lot of learning, which sort of helped me in driving that prowess. And then, of course, you got to work on one of the most loved brands of the country, which also gave you that scale to sort of work and understand. And then I am always curious. I'm always happy to learn new things. Even today, I'm happy to take on newer things. That's the kind of person I am to keep learning newer things. Because what you're doing right. I don't hesitate in saying that. Let me sort of putting my hand up and saying that I'm happy to learn this. Like PR, I learned in Impresario because none of my other organizations were PR first. FMCG is not PR first, but hospitality is. Uh, but with the help of your team also, it's not necessary that you learn top down, right? You can learn from the specialists who you have hired because you know your fundamentals, you know your marketing principles, you know your consumer principles, you know your brand principles. Then everything is about learning deeper into the skill set and the function that you're looking at. And which can be done if you spend some time, and if you're open to learning from your team, which I am honestly.
Fantastic. I think that's is a great answer where a lot of times your team teaches you. And as someone who I started IndieFolio pretty young, and I ended up hiring a lot of people who are much more older than me, and I had to learn from them. Otherwise, I was probably the dumbest person in the room. So I fully second you there, where the team really can teach you a lot very very quickly, because they have failed, they have learned, and you can just spend an hour with them and learn so much. So
In today's time, the younger people, they know so much. Their perspectives are different. They have grown up in a different kind of time from what we have. So if they won't listen, we will become archaic, right? There are certain things that which is great, which of course you will lead from. That's what a leader is meant to do, mentorship, guidance. But I think not without letting their ideas go for a toss. like you give them ideas, you give them breathing space, you let them experiment. That's very, very important.
Fantastic. I want to now jump into Impresario, and you're sitting in a lovely space right now, and that's my first question about what you folks do very uniquely, and I want to know if this is how this pans out as a marketing decision. When you look at, let's say, other chains, right? You've got like a uh, let's say a papaya or a Punjab Grill or an Asia Kitchen. They are pretty much spread out all over India. They and even a McDonald's, for example. You also were in Jubilant and like a Domino's. So they all are supposed to give you the same experience. But the thing with social is that all of them are different, right? I mean, there is some similarity, obviously, which it's a social, but at the same point in time, like there are 12 of them in Bombay and each of them are so unique, and the moment you change cities, the dynamics change quite a lot, and you also do that branding pretty differently. So what was the decision behind that, and isn't this like a marketing headache, right? Because everything will be so unique and different. I wanted to know why you guys do this.
The decision was, I would say, Riaz Amlani, who's the founder and founder of the brand. And it was his vision, and vision is very unique. It's not a headache, actually. It's a lot of fun. And it is our USP. It's what makes us stand out. I don't think anybody in India can claim a brand like who we are. We are 53 outlets strong. Social is actually more than an F&B brand. It is a cultural space. It is a space where communities unite. It is a space where pop culture emerges, the trends are made. If you are to have a space like that, it is a space which is dedicated to the community or the hyperlocal space or the pin code where it is. That is the concept. So you have to be true to the concept, right? When you are marketing it also. Uh, is it tougher than just making one national campaign? For sure, it is. But that is who we are, and that is what makes us unique, and that is what is making me grow. That is what is letting me do the kind of associations that I'm doing. That is what is making me get the customer that I'm getting to social, right? And that is what is making me. I'm in my 10th year this year. So how are we doing this? We are doing this as a brand, and people are coming back to us again and again, like Posca Social, which is one of the most iconic socials. This is where I actually work out of every day. And people still come back and they still recall that they saw Posca Social in Tamasha. They still want to go and sit on that table. You can't have such recall value if you don't create brands like this, and if you don't have unique positioning. So that is our unique positioning, that we've been able to create a brand which is beyond F&B, which is actually a community space, which is a space where creators like to come and hang out, where the local communities want to come and hang out. It won't happen if we won't curate it, if we won't create it, if we won't give a platform to do that, right? It has been created over the years, and that's why it has started happening in the spaces that we have, right? Music, art, inclusivity, uh, the upcoming trends. It has been a platform for Huska Social, like we said, both started there, and we do things so uniquely. We have a wall dedicated for Aman Gupta. There's a dish dedicated for both in Huska Social. Nobody else does such things. So we actually sort of dedicate that outlet to that community, and what has happened in that outlet over the years. That is being social.
Incredible. I personally absolutely love it, and I think a lot of people want to try all the socials out because of how unique each of them are. Like a lot of people have how parents have that char dham thing. A lot of people in our community are like, hey yaar, I want to make sure that I go to and see all socials at least once in my city.
But that is what we
Coming to
want to do. That is so much fun, right? That
Yeah.
who else can say that? Otherwise, all the outlets look the same.
करेक्ट या I'm going to a new city and I'm like यार इधर तो नहीं जाना है बॉम्बे में भी है but when you are looking forward to a new city and you're like okay I have not tried the social of this city, that definitely adds a very unique value to what you folks do. Coming to that question, right, about opening an outlet, you know Riaz was part of that podcast with a lot of incredible restaurants, a lot of people in hospitality, and location is extremely important, right? It's something which people keep on talking about, that if you get the location right, you actually end up solving a lot of problems. Now I wanted to know from you, what's been your learning so far on deciding how to open a new social outlet, right? You folks have these standalone, like I'm in Bombay, so you've got like this big Warsaw 3-story one. You've got a small one in a Phoenix also, and you also are part of like a Kamla Mills where there are multiple, which is like a hotspot. So how do you end up deciding, which is the right location? And I also see Chandigarh as like one, I guess, and Bombay has like 12, 13. So how do you end up deciding? Okay, 20. Okay, so how do you end up deciding?
No,
Sorry,
Chandigarh has
Chandigarh has
two.
two. Chandigarh has two,
Chandigarh
and
has
Bombay
two.
has 12.
See,
So yeah.
I am not the right person to answer this per se, but I'll tell you
Okay.
my perspective on it because there's a separate team altogether which looks at it. But the factors are pretty much in terms of the selection of the city. You look at the youth population, you look at the cultural uh, trends, you look at the vibrant nightlife, you look at which is the place in terms of the city, like a Dehradun or an Indore, which we have opened, where the nightlife is coming up. That is where you would want to sort of, go and open a social. In terms of the existing cities, the whole concept of social is that it's your favorite neighborhood cafe, creative neighborhood cafe, right? So, so if the neighborhood where you want to be in as many neighborhoods as possible, so
Mhm.
that is the knowledge that you will use. And in terms of the real estate, you will of course look at the property which is available. If uh Warsaw is a certain kind of outlet, you will look at the property which is available, what kind of whether it's a commercial area, whether it's a corporate area, whether it's a residential area,
Mhm.
whether it should be a mall property or it should be a street property. Like in Delhi, most of the outlets are mall outlets because that's how Delhi
Mhm.
has become. So it also
Right.
there's so many factors that come into the place, but that's how you look at it. Like Bombay, people don't travel too many distances, right? They don't go too far from work or home because it takes so long to travel. I've stayed in Bombay for 7 years, so I know that really well. Uh, and I've stayed in Delhi from Delhi because I grew up in North Delhi. We travel to South Delhi all the time because most
Mhm.
of the good places were there. Changing slowly
Right.
and steadily, but still. So we have just opened in West Delhi. That's the last outlet we opened, the Jory, which we opened, in a different way. That's basically opening a different neighborhood in Delhi,
Mhm.
which is far from South Delhi. So we know that there's a place there to be open because there's no social there, and people have to travel very far. So I think all
Mhm.
these factors you have to look into. Each city is so different in India,
Mhm.
uh,
Mhm.
and there are so many more cities to go to still. Of course, India is a big, big, big country, and youth population is sort of, uh, is diversified, is aspirational. People are coming to know about our brand. With social media, the reach is out there. People know a lot more. People ask the outlets to be open. So all these
Mhm.
factors are taken into consideration, I would say.
Fantastic. So, when you're deciding, hey, nightlife, or when you're, let's say, doing a scan about which next market I want to tap into, you just said Dehradun nightlife is coming up. Like, how do you trace that, right? Because I know you folks are concentrated, let's say, in one, two cities.
Correct. So different factors. You also have agencies that you go out to. There is a team which is dedicated to doing this. There's a projects team whose job is to look at that.
Mhm.
A business
Okay.
projects team who do exactly this, right? They look at the properties, they look at the cities, they look at different factors like census, reports from other this thing. So all these factors are taken into consideration, and it's actually done in a data driven way and not and in a more scientific way, uh,
Mhm.
than just sort of taking a decision haphazardly, I would say. And there are reports available, third party reports available. There are agencies available which help you in deciding these.
Another driving factor for growth, I'm assuming, is overcoming a big problem restaurants have, which is getting footfall not on weekends, right? Or on like an afternoon, lunch, evening. Um, how have you been able to, tackle such problems? And if there's any other, strategies you've learned over years you want to share.
Of course, weekends is something that we know people go out on and people. But what we do a lot of community events. for different hyperlocal communities that we have, that we spoke about in different outlets. We do a lot of sports screenings. We do a lot of programming events. Uh, Especially the community events are done during the day. For example, if there is an outlet which has a lot of households around, we will curate things like sip and paint, where females can come and they can have some drinks and they can paint along with it. These curated events do rather well during the lunch hours or during the lean hours to get people in. Uh, or if there are screenings happening during the day, certain sports, then that's also something that you can do. And many such experiences. Recently, we actually tied up with Universal Music and we did Taylor Swift official album launch, and the Swifties fans came. This was again during the lean period, right? 4 to 6, because these are younger kids, 18 to 21, 22. The outlets were just exploding because Swifties is a community which is rather passionate about their mentor, whatever, about Taylor Swift. So yeah, I mean, you curate such experiences to have people come, enjoy the experience, and honestly, only social can do it because the ambience is just right, the place is just right, the vibe is just right to enjoy that kind of experience. So we keep learning and we keep doing different things, whether it's tying up with different brands or curated different community events, or just
Mm,
promoting your lunch menu, as simple as
mhm,
that. Different dishes on lunch to get people in, or creating special
mhm,
menus
mhm.
for lunch or offers. I mean, these are the things that work to get people uh, during the leaner hours. Like you.
Got it. I mean, we've done, I think, 50, 60 events with you in your outlets all over India, master classes and workshops. And I think it's something I've always been very fond of, that you give away your space pretty easily. In the start, it was easier. Now it's tougher because everybody wants to do an event. But I'm talking like 7, 8 years ago, and now it's challenging. But I think I really believe that's a big way, you've been able to drive that. I wanted to now highlight this co-working aspect, right? Where I know we talked to a lot of freelancers, and whenever we did these collaborations, I remember somebody from social used to come in and talk about coming and working there. So how has the whole co-working bit worked out for you folks?
See, when we started, the whole tagline was co-working by the day, bars by the night, right? But of
Mm,
course, post-COVID, a lot of co-working spaces have come out. But that said,
mm,
in a lot of outlets, our outlets are preferred as a co-working space. Um,
mhm,
a lot of creators like to come and work out of it, whether they are freelancers, graphic designers, startup communities. So that actually works out pretty well for us. There are
mhm,
people who like to work out of here. There are people who like to do meetings out of here. It depends on
mhm,
again where the outlet is. If outlet is close to office, and people can come and they end up doing their meetings. In places like Hosta, Cyber Hub, where I'm sitting right now, this is also a working space, co-working space. People do come and sort of work out of it, but I would say, of course, the competition has increased. The knowledge of a co-working space has changed
mhm,
post-COVID.
mhm.
So that's something which has definitely happened. When we started, the concept was rather niche, but
Mm,
now the concept has become more acceptable uh,
mm,
across the board. But that also means that people are a lot more open to just come and work out of cafes. They are more mobile. We know a lot of people have switched to non-office working environment post-COVID. And that means that places like these do work well for people to come and work. And we also like to give such environment. We are not very, very fussy. Uh,
mhm,
the food goes well
mhm.
with our menus are rather large with whatever people fancy to have. So that they can have breakfast, they can have lunch, they can have dinner, whatever time they are working. So
Yeah.
that way, I think it works pretty well.
Why do you think a lot of restaurants aren't like thinking from this lens, right? Like I keep on thinking such a great way to solve for lack of audience in these times, these collaborations, these community events, as well as doing co-working. I just feel so many restaurants fail, but I don't know why.
But it also takes a lot to curate this. to tie up with people. You need to have a team like this. I don't think a lot of restaurants would have teams like this,
Right.
marketing teams which work like this, think like this, or they have positioning like this, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's why I said that we are also positioned very uniquely. We don't think of ourselves only as an F&B space. We are a hangout place. We want to give people the good time. We want to be the place for that hyperlocal community where we are in to hang out. We want to give back to the community. We are passionate about specific communities, about pop culture trends, about
Mm-hmm.
tying up with the like-minded brands. All of this is in our DNA. We
Mm-hmm.
are a youth-centric brand. So all this is something which we are very passionate about as a brand. That's something which is in our DNA.
Can't argue with that. I want to now touch upon the whole cloud kitchen wave, right? And I believe Goodness to Go and some other brands also are being worked upon by Impresario only. What's the take there? I mean, I would initially think, is it like cannibalizing? Wouldn't it cannibalize people coming to your place where I can just order your food home? Or does it really not impact at all and increases your overall market?
Yeah, it increases it's an additional revenue
Okay.
because so there are three brands that we are working on right now in terms of cloud kitchen. There's Boss Burger, which is a premium burger brand. There is a brand that we have launched only in North right now, which we launched last November, called Aflatun by Social, which is a premium North Indian brand. And there's a brand called Lucknowi, which is basically a kebab and rolls brand.
Hmm.
Rolls, kebabs, biryanis, that kind of brand. So all these brands, what we definitely do when we do these brands we ensure that the quality is great, ensure that packaging is great, ensure that flavors are great. And this is definitely additional revenue. The brands are going from the same kitchens.
Mhm.
And the whole marketing is done in a different way. The brands are created separately. So there is no cannibalization per se. And Social and Smokehouse Delhi, which are the other two brands, are anyway doing their delivery separately as a delivery brand. So these brands are basically helping us in getting additional revenue uh,
Hmm.
and in touching with more consumers. Like
Hmm.
Aflatun is a buy social, so that there is a touch of that reliability um, uh, that comes from brand social. But it's actually check it out. The Where are you based out of?
I'm in Mumbai.
Yeah, in Mumbai. So it hasn't come to Bombay yet. It's doing pretty well in Delhi. It's more premium sort of. It's North Indian with a twist, so we have played with the ingredients. The packaging is a lot of fun. It's very colorful. It's also a lot of glass jars. It's reusable packaging. So we also want to experiment with some things like that, which we perhaps can't do with the base brand. So,
Hmm.
so to be able to do such things, cloud kitchens give you that flexibility to be able to do that.
Understood.
So that's the
Understood.
whole idea of doing brands like this.
I wanted to ask a branding question now, right? I told a bunch of people in my office that I'm speaking to you, and a lot of them were like, "What's Impresario?" And then I started naming, what you folks, and they're like, "Oh, of course, we love those." Um Also, I mean, you have antisocial. You also have like these single outlets like antisocial Goa, where I'd gone there, and I get like their own marketing cadences there, and it's a very different menu and different price point, at least I assumed, compared to what you usually serve. And then you have your these three packaging brands and blah blah blah. Like, it's such a large operation, but nowhere it's really mentioned in any of your brands that it's by Impresario. And you also did a rebranding recently, so I wanted to know what's the whole idea behind that rebrand, if you're not even like using it in the first place, and why you're not using it in the first place.
Not rebranding per se, yeah, but when we became 20 years, we did celebrate. That was actually an attempt to tell the world that all these brands come under Impresario. Uh, People who are more aware may know that at least Social and Smokehouse are aware of it, but you're right. It's not like they have attempted to tell people, but that was the time where we started telling people that, all these brands come under Impresario. They have separate identities, they cater to different audiences. But what we have started doing, for example, at least on our social, which is where the maximum footfalls come from, or which is where the maximum reaches on all the packaging, we have started writing by Impresario, and all the brands have started coming in. So we're doing these small things on the website, on different channels, so CRM, etc., where we are trying to create awareness and build branding uh, wherever possible, without, creating too much hoopla about it, because there are different identities of these brands, like you said, whether it's a Vanderborn, which is really, a dedicated hyperlocal space again for the community in Mumbai, very, very different from anything else that you would see in compared to a social or a smokehouse deli. So that's the whole thought process. And that's what we tried to do with Impresario 20. That was a dedication that happened across the brands uh, that we did. And that film does exist, which basically covers all the outlets that we have.
It makes so much sense, because every time you launch anything new, even if it's the smallest thing, people have this top of mind brand saliency towards Impresario. It'll suddenly, I think, just build so much trust there. I want to now touch upon campaigns. With you, uh, you must have done so many of them in your career, especially when you were in FMCG. Even right now, I feel you did a campaign on Women's Day where you looked at a couple of people who work there, and you covered their stories. um, uh, I wanted to ask you a question a little bit different, right? So you I think are very close to Gen Z. These are this is the next consumer set, right? India is so young. Everybody says this is the people who are going to replace, let's say, my millennial. I'm 28, and there are people who are like 18 who are a decade younger than me. So when they are going to kind of shift to the workforce, I want to know your perspective on authenticity in marketing, and I'll tell you where I'm getting this from. Whenever these topicals come, right, like Mother's Day or Women's Day or anything like that, I was with one of my cousins, and she's 18 years old, and like her eyes sockets are like all the way back in her head, saying, these all people are fake, they're not authentic. And as all brands just hop onto all these topicals, like those are the 20 lakh, 1 crore, 2 crore budget films which people do. So that got me wondering that, this new generation doesn't care. Like, they know what you are doing. You really are promoting a social cause because it gives you maybe eyeballs. So, as somebody who speaks to Gen Z, I think so much. What do you think brands should do with a new target like
Yeah.
this?
I think, see, different brands also will need to do different things. I am
Okay.
also catering to a Gen Z, and it's easy for me to be authentic because I can get the curators who have actually come out of, my own cafe. I have a physical space. If you're
Correct.
selling a product, you know, there are
Yeah.
emotional stories that have to be woven, because FMCG products have claims like that, right? So
Correct.
I'm saying I understand why they create those 1 minuters and what your cousin is saying, but some of those campaigns have to be looked at those eyes, because what else will they do? But for us, I think what is important is authenticity, because we are actually a very, very real brand. There
Yeah.
is no other way to be. People come in this space, they experience it, they have the food here, and if the experience is not good, they say it right out here. It happens in real time. Unlike, if somebody consumes a product uh, in an FMCG, it may not reach them, or it may reach them, but they will not see the real faces. But we do. It
Mhm.
happens in our spaces. So, for example, Women's Day campaign that you spoke about, we actually picked up the curators, some community event people, some startup, women founders who have worked here and who use social as a platform and they became who they became, and the role that social played in their life. So it was as real as it could be. And these are the campaign's name was the Bold Type, and these are women who are bold, who are doing what they are doing in their field. Um, and that's something which is close to our heart: inclusivity, diversity, because our spaces are also like that. We want spaces to be open for everyone to come in. We want them to be comfortable. We want everyone to be able to walk into a space, because that's what a space does, right? Every conversation happens in a space. These cafes are something like, your meetings happen here, your dates happen here, your birthdays happen here. These spaces are so important. Think about it.
Right.
So
Right.
if a good experience happens, you remember that, oh, it happened here, or if a bad experience happened, that also you remember that happened in that restaurant. These
Right.
places mark those events. So
Correct.
authenticity is actually very, very important for us. And in fact, a lot of times the films that we, uh, that we shoot, that we curate, that we create it in our own spaces. We create it with our own teams. We create it with our own members, with our own
Mhm.
guests for that authenticity. I think, but I agree with you. Gen Z is a lot more real. They call the bullshit out there, you know, and what perhaps worked for us as millennials, because see, we also transitioned from TVC to digital, right? For us, those YouTube 1 minuters emotional, I remember, were wow, what is happening?
Correct.
Because
Correct.
we had seen very functional advertising when we were
Correct.
growing up. So for us, emotional, you're still 28. I saw the ads that started coming, those emotional films, and that was the high that the advertising agencies were getting. The budgets were becoming bigger. But
Correct.
now it's really about being authentic. People are, and that's what social media does, right? Because everyone can create an authentic film. People are going back to creating films on iPhone now,
Correct. Exactly.
and they are also
Exactly.
doing equally well. It's not
Yeah.
really important to have big budgets or big productions for your films to do well. You can
Right.
get your 500K or million views with an iPhone film as well,
Correct.
which is shot on
Absolutely.
no budget. So the times are changing, the needs are changing, but I think the brand needs to be authentic to who they are. That's more important.
I think well put. I feel this reminds me, like, I had a conversation with somebody who was working in Meta, and he's independent now as a creative person, and he was telling me what brands get wrong when they're trying to be authentic is they forget that your competition is not your brand competition. Your competition is the influencer or the content creator who's taking away attention from your customers. So the moment you put out something which is fake or very brand heavy or very salesy and markety, they're just going to swipe you in a second. And that's why, because they want to see more people coming in and opening their video and talking, right? So it really works well. So yeah, I think you validated that very, very well. I'll just hop on to the last few questions, Divya, for our podcast. One is, I want to understand your entire marketing and creative stack, right? There are so many brands, so many things happening. Each outlet has certain things happening. So do you have like a central creative marketing team, or do you work with agencies? Do you have an in-house team? How
Yeah.
does the whole
So we
thing work?
have it. We have an in-house team. We have an in-house creative team. We have a set of designers. We have a set of copywriters. But we also like to work with creators.
Mm-hmm.
So, we work with creators in different cities, in different uh, sectors, if needed, as and when needed. For example, for different launches in new cities, we sometimes tie up with different creators. For example, I was talking about Rajouri launch. For the Rajouri launch film, we tied up with Tikuji, who's an influencer in West Delhi area. And so doing these kind of things, but the film was created with my internal team, and we tied up with the creator along with that. So we do strategies like this, but it's an in-house team with the kind of work that we need. I think it's very important for people to understand the brand.
Mm-hmm.
We do take help of agencies if needed for static creatives, but again, that's handled majorly by internal teams. It's just to give them some bandwidth, uh, so that the adapts, etc., can be taken care of. But net, the majority of work is done by the internal creative team. And the digital team is also internal so that the learnings can be shared, because it's something which has to be done, right? Otherwise, how will you know how your paid media is? So that's why actually we have kept most of the teams in.
So, when you are, let's say, in a company like Nestle or anything like that, they tend to have like 100 agencies, who are powering their entire content stack. So, when should one outsource? When should one do it internally?
See, I think for a brand like ours, like you rightly said, where there are so many hyperlocal nuances, it will just not be possible to work with an external partner.
Mhm.
uh, until and unless somebody really knows the DNA of the brand, in terms of writing. And we are also very, very touchy about it. In a smaller setup, in an Indian agency, you can be more agile. Also,
Mhm.
agility gets really challenged. I need to move really, really fast. And my in-house team lets me do that because the amount of creative, the amount of work which we turn around in one day will never happen with an external partner. It's also about the industry that you are in. FMCG is rather slow moving compared to hospitality and F&B that we are a part of, right? For us, the agility, speed, the dynamicity, the number of things that we do, the speed at which we do, the campaigns that we mount are a lot. So this industry is very, very fast compared to any other industry that I've worked in. So that's why the in-house teams work the best. Uh,
Understood.
Along with, you can take help, like I said, you can always work with the environment. In today's time, it's very easy to work with creators. So you can always tie back that agents, that great talent which is available. But if you have people who are sort of responsible internally, then you know that work will get executed.
Understood. Understood. Got it. So I think speed's a pretty big priority, and I think whenever you want to prioritize speed, yeah,
I think it's speed and the brand or
the brand,
knowledge
the
and
brand.
the tonality. Yeah, I think it's a combination of both, which I feel, at least for a brand like ours, is better handled internally.
Okay, understood, understood. Maybe not in Impresario, but in all the experiences you've had in the past, you must have worked with a lot of agencies, I'm assuming. And we represent a lot of studios and boutique agencies, and I think a lot of founders are always asking questions to folks like you that what really differentiates a great agency from a good agency. So, do you have anything you want to share there?
Honestly, if I have to be honest, it's about how the pitch goes on that day. That's also really important. Then, of course, it's the past track, it's the work that you have seen. It's also recommendations in terms of the servicing teams, because it's one thing to see the work, but what really matters is also the servicing team, right? Because what they show versus what happens. That's why, to me, it's very important to talk to the industry, find out about the teams that are working with you, because that becomes a challenge sometimes. What is shown versus what is given can become a challenge. Then, of course, it's also the pricing at which you're getting certain work uh, that usually happens in a pitching process. The value for money you will always look at. I think these are some of the factors that you look at. Uh, I think recommendation from the industry also matters to me, at least personally, a lot. And I do try to sort of talk to people, find out uh,
Yeah.
and you have friends in the industry, you can talk to people. So that also helps. Yeah.
Got it. Got it. Super, super. Thanks for that. Next up, I want to touch upon AI. In fact, I see a lot of cool work happening by you folks in that. I had seen this film. If I'm not wrong, somebody who I know, Ninad, he had created that. I'm not sure if you know his name, but very, very fun.
For Mindspace Social, right? For
Yes,
Hyderabad.
yes, yes, yes. So really nice film, very cool. So I wanted to ask your perspective, like especially with respect to, let's say, hospitality. Do you have any predictions yourself on how you end up leveraging AI in the near future?
We are, I think, to a certain extent, especially in terms of design, like you mentioned, we have started using it. Uh, and why not? The idea is to learn, curate, design, data analytics. Uh, I think these are the spaces where I feel the application will start happening first thing. Um, and that's where I'm starting to see
Mhm.
the usage. Uh, it's going to happen, Kavan. It's also about how we are happy to learn, how we are happy to uh, sort of again what I was saying earlier, because the world is moving towards that. So how fast are we going to adapt to it? Learn. I am encouraging the team, and we are also being encouraged to not sort of be left behind on the curve. Use it
Yeah.
intelligently, or
Mhm.
use it wisely,
Mhm.
but definitely create something which is in trend with what's happening in the world and not be left behind. So
Got it.
right now, I
Got it.
would say more in the field of design and data. These are the two places where we want to start.
Right.
I think, and we have started.
Right. So content production and data analytics. I think, yeah, you're right. I think I've seen the best use cases which genuinely create value in those domains only. Now, just going to my last question, Divya, um, restaurants are such big like passion projects for so many founders. It's like so many entrepreneurs. It's like, yeah, chalo, I'm going to open a restaurant and I'm going to, chill for the rest of my life. And the more I read about it, the more I realize it's one of the toughest businesses to be in. Most of them fail, most people go bankrupt. You are responsible to make sure that there's always growth in business, in these restaurants, which is what doesn't come, for a lot of people. So if I'm, let's say, not an impresario, right, I'm just doing 0 to 1, I'm maybe opening one small outlet, what would be your recommendation on my big bets I should take to make sure that the business is successful and I have enough customers in my
I
restaurants?
think unique positioning is very important because if you don't have something different, people will not come. The location is very, very important. Where are you opening? Then, of course, the brand marketing is important. How are you creating awareness? What channels are you reaching? I think these two, three things are damn important if you have to be successful. Because the restaurants are opening at the speed of lightning in today's time, right? If you don't differentiate yourself, then you will get lost. So at the beginning, what the word that you use, right? Top of mind or salience. If you don't generate salience in the beginning, then you are gone. Because if you're not even in the consideration set and footfalls are not coming in the beginning, then it will not happen.
So like I have limited money, right? And often what happens is people will be like, yeah, I'll make sure the ambience and the food's top notch, and then they're left with no money. Sometimes they do such great brand marketing, but when people come, it doesn't taste that good. Your repeat doesn't happen. So how should one balance this?
All the things they do happen. See, you don't necessarily need too much money, right, in the beginning to, but even if you are catering, since you would have opened in a particular location with one restaurant, can you at least get people from the nearby location and do more targeted marketing in the beginning? But the idea is that restaurant should be full. People should be there. People should come because then word of mouth can also spread if your product is excellent, like you're saying.
Mhm,
But
mhm.
if that also
Understood.
doesn't happen, if you don't capture the data also, how will you retarget?
Got it. Got it. What channel do you think should one double down on when they're doing 0 to 1 to get customers?
In today's time, depending on, of course, your target area, you will need to go digital for sure. Um, that's important. And then, of course, I think digital is very, very important. That channel is not something that can be missed in today's time.
Got it. Got it. Understood. So go digital, make sure the food's good, and you've got good top of mind through brand marketing. So that's a good, I think, playbook for anybody who's hearing this and wants to start up. So that's the end of the podcast, Divya. Thanks a lot for your time. I hope you had fun.
Absolutely. I had
Great, great. And for everybody who stuck along, thanks so much for tuning in. And if you'd like another expert like Divya to come in soon, do like, share, subscribe. We'll be live with another episode next week. Thank you.